I didn't fall apart. That's the part people don't understand. I still woke up early, still answered emails, still packed lunches, remembered appointments, kept things moving. From the outside, my life looked fine. Stable, responsible, the kind of life people say they want. But one evening, I sat in my car after pulling into the driveway. The engine was off, the house lights were on, and I stayed there longer than I needed to. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was tired in a way I didn't have a name for yet. I'm in my mid-40s. I work full-time. I have children who don't need me the way they used to, but still need me in quieter, more complicated ways. I have a partner. We're not unhappy. We're just efficient. Life runs smoothly, like a system that's been optimized for years. I used to think this was what adulthood was supposed to feel like. I handled things. That became my role. When something went wrong, people looked at me. When decisions needed to be made, I made them. When everyone else felt overwhelmed, I stayed calm. "You're so strong," they said. "I don't know how you do it all." I smiled every time, because correcting them felt harder than accepting it. The exhaustion didn't arrive suddenly. There was no moment I could point to and say, "This is when it started." It crept in slowly. I stopped listening to music in the car, not intentionally. I just never turned it on. Books stayed unfinished on my nightstand. Shows played in the background while I scrolled on my phone, not really watching, not really resting. At night, I lay in bed feeling wired and empty at the same time. My body was tired. My mind refused to shut off. I thought about small things, emails I forgot to send, conversations I replayed, wondering if I sounded impatient, things I should have done better. Nothing dramatic, just a constant, low-level hum of responsibility. I told myself this was normal. This was life. This was what it meant to be dependable. So I kept going. Burnout doesn't always look like collapse. Sometimes it looks like consistency. I showed up every day. I met expectations. I didn't complain. But inside, something was flattening. Joy didn't disappear. It just became distant, muted. I didn't feel deeply unhappy. And that confused me. Because how could I justify feeling this way when nothing was technically wrong? I had a job, a family, a life that worked. So I stayed quiet. One Tuesday evening, nothing went wrong. Dinner was cooked. The kitchen was clean. The house settled into that post-dinner silence where everyone retreats to their own space. I stood at the sink, my hands in warm, soapy water, staring at the window above it. And out of nowhere, a thought surfaced. I don't remember the last time I felt rested. Not refreshed, not energized, just rested. The realization hit me harder than any crisis ever had, because I couldn't blame it on one bad week or one hard season. This wasn't exhaustion from doing too much once. It was exhaustion from doing everything for too long. I didn't tell anyone. Not right away. I didn't want advice. I didn't want concern. Mostly, I didn't want to explain something I barely understood myself. So I started making small, quiet changes. I stopped answering emails late at night. Not with an announcement. I just didn't open them. I said no to one extra commitment, then another. Each no felt uncomfortable, like I was letting someone down. But it also felt honest. One afternoon, instead of turning on a podcast during my drive home, I left the car silent. At first, the quiet made me restless. Then it made me aware. I noticed how tense my shoulders were, how shallow my breathing had become. Halfway home, I realized I was gripping the steering wheel like I was bracing for impact. I loosened my hands. and something in me softened. I didn't quit my job. I didn't make a dramatic life change. That's another thing people don't always understand. Healing doesn't always arrive as transformation. Sometimes it arrives as permission. Permission to rest before breaking. Permission to stop proving strength. I began asking myself one question in the middle of the day. What do I actually need right now? Sometimes the answer was simple. A walk, a pause, 5 minutes without being needed. Sometimes the answer surprised me. It wasn't productivity. It wasn't achievement. It was space. I realized how often I had mistaken endurance for strength. I had spent years pushing through discomfort without questioning it, ignoring early signals because I could, because nothing was urgent enough to stop, because people relied on me. Quiet burnout taught me something different. That listening sooner is braver than collapsing later. That strength doesn't require constant output. That I didn't need to justify my exhaustion with visible damage. I'm still learning. There are days when I slip back into old patterns. Days when I overextend. Days when I forget myself again. But now, I notice sooner. I notice when my patience thins. When joy fades to the background. When silence feels heavy instead of peaceful. And when that happens, I pause. Not dramatically. Not perfectly. Just enough to hear myself. Some women don't fall apart. They don't ask for help. They don't announce their limits. They keep going quietly until their inner world grows smaller and smaller. I was one of them, and I'm learning that the most important thing I can do now is listen to that quiet before it becomes something louder. Thank you so much for listening. If this resonated with you, I hope you'll share your thoughts in the comments. Take care.